evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition. So, Conference Finals Game 2 of the Spurs-Warriors is about to start tonight, and then tomorrow night, Cavs-Celtics. So let's talk about what we saw last night. So it's Game 7, 3-3, in TD Garden, John Wall versus Isaiah Thomas, and here's what happened. So, look, the Wizards played with them for sure. I thought they did fairly well, but the problem was their bench. The Wizards bench took 5 shots. 5! The rest of the team took 86. That's 81 by the starters. You can't do that. The Wizards bench hit 1 shot. 1! They only scored 5 points. The rest of the team scored 110. You can't score 5 points from the bench. That was the worst I've ever seen any bench ever play. Here's another thing that happened. Jan Mahinmi played 11 minutes. He's 7 feet tall, right? He didn't get a single rebound. Yesterday, Steph Curry scored 40 points. Jan Mahinmi makes more money than Steph Curry. It doesn't make any sense. Here's why. Steph Curry took a bargain contract. Mahinmi's way overpaid. That's about to change. How does a bench play that poorly? That's the worst I've ever seen any bench in NBA history play. Why? Why? 5 points. 5. That's all the bench scored. You know how many seconds Kelly replayed? 6 seconds. 6 out of 240. He was a key player off the bench for them. And you only play him 6 seconds. Look, here's the thing about the Wizards. John Wall played 46 minutes last night. And he went 0 for his last 11. He was clearly out of energy. He's been pounded all series. Was just been playing 40 plus minutes every game. It's going to catch up to them. And Brandon Jennings, supposed to be their best bench player, only averaged 2 points a game the entire series. It was the bench. The starters were completely worn down. Look at the Celtics bench. Look what Kelly Olynyk did. Scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. Had 26 overall. That's why you have a bench. Jaylen Brown is 19. Played better than anyone off the Celtics bench. 2 years ago, he's guarding people that are 5'5". 165. Guarding people a foot shorter than LeBron James. 100 pounds lighter. And tomorrow night, he could very well guard LeBron James. The Celtics bench was so much better. They had much more contributing players. Marcus Smart, Kelly Olynyk, Jaylen Brown. That's just a few to name. Terry Rozier. They had 9 total guys contribute this series. 9. The Wizards, Wall played a good series. He had some great games, but at times missed way too many shots. Especially Game 7. Beal was inconsistent. Played very poorly in Games 2 and 3, but played great in Games 6 and 7. Otto Porter had a good series, but was scoreless in Game 6. Overall, I thought he played well. Gortati's scoring was down, but I thought he pounded through. Look, the starters played 100%. They played the vast majority of the minutes. And after Game 3, what I said is, look, this bench is terrible. They're going to be completely worn down. And they took the Celtics to 7, and they're completely worn down. They're completely worn down after Game 6. Are you kidding me? John Wall hitting the biggest 3 of his life? If he doesn't make it, it's over. They rallied and fought back against the Celtics. And they were completely worn down after that game. So think how tired they were. And John Wall playing 46 minutes. They were completely worn down. They had nothing left. When the fourth quarter came along, I felt like they were just completely out of energy. Had absolutely nothing left. And just looking at it. After games 3 and 4, they had good reason to rest. Maybe even game 5. But by game 6, they just had nothing left. Nothing left after game 7. Their season's over, and look, the Wizards are in a critical situation. John Wall has 1 year left on his contract. Changes are going to have to be made to the bench. They've got to improve the bench. You do not want this, looking back 5-10 years down the road, and this is as far as they advance in the John Wall era. They cannot peak at this level. changes will have to be made. And look at the rest of the league. The Celtics are only going to get better. That's right, they're only going to get better. They can win the lottery tonight, and we'll see how they do against LeBron James the next week or so. They may lose, but they're only going to get better. Now LeBron's going to decline. You never know if the Raptors. Personally saying, the Southeast Division is clearly the Wizards. The Hawks, I don't know what they're going to do next year. They could be heading towards rebuilding mode. I feel like that will happen. The Hornets, I don't know where they're heading. Kemba Walker, you can carry the team. I just don't know what direction they're heading in. And then you want to look at the Magic. They are just have no clue whatsoever. They have no talent, nothing to build on. Really, since Dwight left, that's been it. So the Southeast Division, looking at all the teams, this is the Wizards' division. This is clearly theirs. It is no contest who's going to be in the division. And then the Heat. I don't know. The way Spoelstra coached them in the second half was able to gather the team back together. They're on pace to lose 60 games. Just barely missed the playoffs. So looking at the division, you never know Miami and their appeal and stuff. But right now, this is the Wizards division. And looking throughout the league, I don't know how much farther the Wizards can get. Is this the best they're going to get? Well, Beal's locked in for the next 4 years. Huge cap hit. Porter may have to be extended. I mean, what else can you do? Do you want to let him go like, it's not that good, and then you regret it? They're paying him. Gortat's locked in. Morris is making good money. He got extended by Phoenix a few years ago. The question is, what do you do if you're bench? Now, Brandon Jennings, how could he play so poorly this series? He once scored 55 points in a game. 55. One of the greatest scoring performances you'll ever see by someone that young of an age. And he was a good scorer throughout his career. I mean, think about what he did in New York this year. He's one of the better point guards off the bench in the league. But then in Washington, he couldn't score. Bogdanovich, he had his moments. He hit the only shot that anyone on the bench hit all night. He played great some games. Regular season, had his moments in the playoffs, did not come up. Jan Mahinmi was just, I don't know about that signing, looks terrible right now. You're making more than Steph Curry. He's won 2 MVPs. Might be the best player in the league. No, he's not, but he's making more. Could you make an argument that one of the 5 worst players in the league is making more than one of the 5 best players in the league? Yes, you could. And just, look, their bench is awful. They're going to have to make improvements. Oh yeah, I think Kelly Oubre has a good future. He was big. He had some big moments, was guarding Isaiah Thomas in game 2, in a very crucial game, and all that. And then really once he punched Olynyk, it kind of went downhill for him. Really stopped playing and hardly played in game 7. So, again, he's young. He's only 21. He's got a great future ahead of him. But looking at the series, the Wizards could have won the series. Game 2, that meltdown, clearly out of energy. Again, they were clearly out of energy in Game 2, Game 6, and Game 7. And when you don't have energy, you're just not going to win. And with what I was surprised, Isaiah Thomas in Games 3 and 4 was really a lot more passive. He really took over, was more aggressive in Games 6 and 7. Game 5 didn't need to be aggressive at all. He could pass the guys like Avery Bradley, Al Horford. They were the key contributors. And just looking at it, the bottom line is you need a bench to win. And the Wizards don't have that. And if they want to be successful in the future, Wall has 1 year left on his contract. And granted, the Wizards may offer him $200 million. The next team might offer him $160, $180. So he's likely to re-sign with the Wizards. But does he want to deal with this? John Wall, I'm going to ask you this. Do you want to deal with this for the rest of your career? Since you're going to have a huge cap hit, say after 18, and you can't afford to bring in other stars. Beal's locked in. Morris is locked in for a while at least. Gortat will be locked in for a few more years. Porter is going to be locked in long term. So for the next 2 or 3 years, you're investing in this current group. And the problem is, the bench needs to be a lot better. When you don't have a bench, it's hard to win a playoff series. There was almost no depth. I mean, look, throughout the series, Bogdanovich couldn't contribute enough. Brandon Jennings couldn't score a point. And he's not that good of a defender. He was basically useless. Jan Mahimi, not a very good backup center. I mean, granted, he was hurt throughout the year. We'll see. Maybe he'll be better next year. Oubre, he was their best player off the bench. And he was not played in Game 7. Would it have made the difference? Probably not. But maybe it would have been closer. At least give it a try. But you played him 6 seconds? I can count to 7 right now. In fact, Oubre played about as much as what I've said in the past 10 seconds. Less than that. He didn't play. Poor management of the bench. Nothing you can really do. I mean, granted, Scott Brooks was given this roster, yes. They added Bogdanovich, they added Jennings, but it's basically the same thing. And this is what they had to play with. And the Wizards, with this current core group, they're going to be locked in the next 2 or 3 years. And maybe they get someone else. Maybe they get a DeMarcus Cousins along the way. It's a possibility. They were teammates together at Kentucky 1 year. But probably not. I don't know if they'll be able to afford it. So they're completely committed to John Wall. And this summer, for 2 years, people in Washington were hoping for Durant. We're hoping for Durant. The hometown guy didn't come. I didn't think he really was going to come. Yes, it could be rumors for 2 years. Kevin Durant likes DC, has a Redskins tattoo. Oh, he's at FedEx Field. Oh, he's at Nationals Park throwing out the first pitch. That never happened, but that's something that could well happen. And all that stuff. And Kevin Durant didn't come. People in Washington could have gotten their hopes up. I was kind of hoping he'd go to Washington. Never happened. And look, John Wall is the best superstar they had since Gilbert Arenas. Really, for the past 13, 14 years, they've had their point guard. They've had Arenas. They've had Wall. And the playoff results are a little bit better than the Arenas here. John Wall never lost in the first round. I mean, think about the teams he played. In 2014, what happened was very acceptable. What happened this year was somewhat acceptable, except the fact is, they lost in Game 2. They should have won that. They could have won Game 7 if they had a bench. But of course they didn't have a bench. And you let Kelly Olynyk, a backup center, probably their 6th, 7th man, come in, score 14 points in the fourth quarter, and 26 overall. I think he outscored John Wall. Certainly in the fourth quarter. John Wall missed his last 11 shots. I mean, yes, he was out of energy, but you can't miss your last 11 shots. And John Wall was not at his best last night. He was completely out of energy. So, again, it's not all his fault. Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. He was out of energy. So I think it's 25% on him. I don't know, 25% on not resting him. And just 50%, hey, there's the rest of the team. And look, so let's look at their playoff losses. As I said a minute ago, 2014, very acceptable. They're a young team. People are just excited to have playoff basketball in DC for the first time in 6 years. They're excited. That was okay. What happened in 2015? They beat the Raptors. That Hawks series, I mean, look, I know we're going to have to revisit it, but look, they had a 2-1 lead on them. Game 4 was at home. I mean, Paul Pierce, he had an incredible playoff performance that year. That was the last time Paul Pierce was really a productive player and almost won Game 4. Should have won Game 5. I mean, I'm sorry, but they should have won that game. Game 6, who knows what happens? It was just too late. We never know. There we go. Last year they didn't make the playoffs and John Wall was clearly hurt. John Wall is healthy now. So what is the future of the Wizards? They're going to be locked into the same group, and Boston's going to be better next year. Cleveland, they might start to decline, but look, as far as I can see, they're a great team. And for the Wizards, I just don't know what they're going to do. Look, I don't know if John Wall, do not think he'll ever win a championship in Washington. I just don't think it's going to happen unless they add star power around him. If this is what they peak, this is how they peaked. Now, this is not just the Wizards. This goes for DC sports in general. Think about it. The Capitals had 3 President's Cup trophies. 3 President's Cup trophies. They never made it to the finals. They never made it to the conference finals. And in the last week. They had a Game 7 against the Penguins. This was a chance to just erase everything that happened. 9 years of disappointment. All those Game 7s disappointments with the Rangers. Oh, man. All that. Just erase it all. And what did they do? They lost Game 7. They lost Game 7. We know about the Redskins. They won the Super Bowl in 91. No one in DC's won since. DC Sports, I said it a week ago on Twitter. They are cursed. DC Sports is cursed. I mean, come on. Kelly Olynyk, who's big part of why the Celtics won. They lost Game 7 in Boston. But John Wall, I will always remember him for that clutch shot. That shot could have saved their season. If it weren't for the Game 2 collapse, the Wizards definitely could have won the series. They very well could have. And should they have? Yes, I think 60-40. Wizards should have won the series. It was a bad loss in Game 7. Look, this is what happens in DC. And look, the Nationals, we remember what happened in Game 5 in 2012. Couldn't beat the Giants. Last year that lost to the Dodgers. What a bad night if you were there. The Metro closed at 11:30. You had to sit through another hour of just unfolding. You lost. You're straight in DC. I guess you have to walk home. Take an hour walk home farther. Just all that. Look. And then Robert Griffin III. They're in the playoffs. You think this is going to be great. Oh, this is just the beginning. You look at these two teams. The Seahawks and the Redskins right there. What happens? No one knew that day, but the Seahawks the next year would win the Super Bowl, make it the year after, and have been one of the league's most successful franchises for the past 5 years. While the Redskins, RG3 was never the same after that. And yes, they've been to the playoffs. They've played one playoff game since then, with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. So will Kirk Cousins be the hero? Will he bring a Lombardi trophy to Washington? Yeah, we'll see. I think it's possible. Not likely. Look, of all the teams in Washington, every single year when the Capitals make it to the playoffs, I think they can do it, but I kind of know they won't. And then the Nationals, I hope so too. They're the team we can rely on right now. They're the best team in DC right now. They're going to go to the playoffs this year, but let me tell you, if their bullpen does what they've done the first 6 weeks and somehow cost us a pennant, a championship, a series, whatever, DC Sports is still cursed. So, let the Nationals break the curse of Super Bowl 26. So, there you have it. The Wizards lost Game 7. That is it. I don't know what their future's like with this current group. They're never going to they'd be lucky just to make it to the conference finals. They'll never make it to the finals. It's just the way it goes. And look, bad loss. Really bad loss. I don't know if they're coming back. So the question is now, is this as high as they ever peak in the John Wall era? Is this their peak? Is this the highest they can possibly go? We'll see. I hope not. I'm not a Wizards fan, but I kind of hope John Wall does better, kind of can get past this and can advance farther. We'll see. We'll see. The question is he here 1 more year? Is he here 10 more years? So, it's not over, Wizards fans. There's still optimism. This is the height of the John Wall era. Success will come. So, with that over, it is Cavs Celtics in the conference finals. So, throughout the regular season, they battled neck and neck for 1-2, 1-2. 1-2, the Cavs won back in November. Then the Cavs won a December TNT game. I believe they played each other in March. I think the Celtics won that. That's right. And then the Cavs won a game late in April that we thought would clinch them the number 1 seed. Did not. They fell apart late in the year. The Celtics took it. And what this means is the Celtics have home court advantage. But I don't think it means too much. The way LeBron James played in Indiana in Game 3, he took over. He did what he would do 10 years ago. And that's LeBron James. Sure, he has plenty of talent around him. And he can pass. Might score 20 a game for a few games. But if he wants to, he can just take over, score 35, 40, 45, 50. Kind of what he's done in critical moments where he knows. That's the thing about LeBron. He knows exactly when to take over. Game 4, played great there on the road. And then Toronto, don't get me started, just completely dominated the Raptors. Hit every clutch shot. Completely destroyed the Raptors. And I'm not worried about the Cavs. I'm not worried about them. Now, what if it's like last year's conference finals, where they lose on the road? And what if they're down 2-0 going back to Cleveland? Here's my prediction. They might lose one game to the Celtics. One game to the Celtics. They might lose game 2. And then close out 3, 4, and 5. But looking at it, the series, the Celtics, on the other hand, have not cruised through. Now, the Cavs they beat Indiana on Sunday the 23rd, did not play again for 8 days, and then they beat the Raptors on Sunday the 7th, will not play till tomorrow, so that's plenty of rest, plenty of time to prepare. Well, kind of positive and negative. They have to prepare for the Celtics on short notice. They really have today to prepare for it, unless people were doing late night film study, which I'm sure there was some of it. I don't know. I'm not in the organization. Where, same thing with the Celtics. They're tired. They just won in 7. They're out of energy. Luckily, they get to stay home. So they're probably practicing at TD Garden right now, going over strategy, looking at previous game film of what they did earlier in the season. And talking about it, the Cavs, short notice is prepared, but the Cavs are much more restful. They have plenty of energy. They're at 100%. They've had all the rest in the world, where the Celtics, they got themselves down 0-2, going back to Chicago. Had to win in Chicago. Won there. And won the next 4. And then looking at it, I mean, it's the NBA's rules. I don't agree with them. For some reason, they start series early. And they had to play 2 days later, even though they won Game 6. Same thing with the Wizards. They won the first 2. Okay, have some rest. In Washington, it was all the runs. 22-0, 26-0, which I don't know how you see that happen. But the Celtics, for about 12 minutes or so, give or take 12 minutes, 13 minutes, played about as awful as any NBA team could ever play. The worst 13 minutes in league history. Other than that, they played pretty well. Oh yeah, and they got down 16-0, and so they're outscored 64-0 if you look at all the 3 stretches, for 3 brief stretches of the Wizards. So, and then they obviously won last night. So looking back at it, who wins the series? Well, it's LeBron versus the Celtics again. But before we talk about LeBron playing the Celtics, let's go back in time. Let's start from the beginning. So it's 2008. The Celtics have gotten Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. They were tired after playing against the Hawks, very shockingly. Took them to 7 games. The Cavs, on their hand, beat the Wizards, and this is LeBron. He's 23 years old. A year earlier, he carried them to the finals. Same kind of team, He played awful the first 2 games, and then they're down 0-2 to the Celtics, but they started winning. They won in Cleveland. But the biggest highlight of the storyline, Paul Pierce, LeBron James, Game 7 duel. That was epic. It's just one of the more incredible duels in NBA history. The Celtics won. LeBron carried the team. He lost. Fast forward 2 years later. The Cavs have gotten better, while the Celtics have gotten older. That's right, Pierce was 32, going to be 33 in September. Ray Allen was nearly 35. Garnett had just turned 34. Think about it. Those are your 3 best players. And they're all getting into their mid-30s. And LeBron just won his second MVP, back-to-back years as the first place in the Eastern Conference, and they were going head to head. That was, the Celtics had a 2-1, or no, the Cavs had a 2-1 lead, and the Celtics won the last three. Game 5, LeBron was awful, which, look, at the time, that would have been a great thing to talk about then. And then the Game 6, LeBron, last game ever of having to completely carry a team like the way he had, played extremely hard, had to force too many things, just knew he had to do too much. They won, and you saw LeBron walking into the locker room. His emotions told you. Might have been thinking, I can't take this anymore. Nothing changes. I'm not playing here anymore. And I was right. The next year, LeBron's a Celtic. Heat is on the Heat. The Celtics are a little bit better, or actually older. That team might have been a little better, and that was a good series. But what I remember most about that series, and I think the most famous part of that series, it was competitive, it was close, two very good teams, and LeBron just went off. I think he scored 10 straight points or something, and basically iced the series all by himself. In the last 3 minutes, just outscored the Celtics something like 10, 12 to nothing. Let's fast forward one year later. So 3 matchups in a row, 4 times in 5 years. This time the Celtics. Garnett is 36. Allen is 36, going to be 37 quite soon. Pierce is 34. You have all these guys in their mid-30s. Some even approaching into their late 30s. And the Cavs took a 2-0 lead. Like, yeah, of course it's going to happen. Or the Heat, and then Pierce at that clutch shot in Game 5. Fast forward, it's 2-2. He basically iced that game. Game 6 back in Boston. Now, at the time, it would have been fun to draw up all these scenarios, all that stuff. So, Game 6, LeBron's legacy is desperately on the line. The old Celtics have a chance to beat the Heat. LeBron in his prime. One of the greatest upsets in NBA history. It's in Boston. People in Boston are so excited. They have a chance to take down the King again and show that super teams don't work. Young, old teams, underdogs can win too. Now, that was the last moment really in the NBA that, this underdog team, this older team had a chance to go to the finals. That was the last time we ever really saw something like that, which is, is kind of sad since we know it's going to be Cavs Warriors, Cavs Spurs, Cavs Heat Spurs, all that stuff. The finals has not changed. And the previous 4 years, it's been LeBron's team, Heat and Cavs, the Spurs and Warriors. 4 different possible combinations in 4 years, including the same player. And LeBron has scored 45 points that night, had one of the greatest performances in NBA history. And just think of all the pressure. He's down 3-2, going into Boston, knowing that if they don't win that game, people are just going to go all over him. It's going to be a nightmare. He'll never win a championship. If he can't beat an old Celtics team, then he'll never win a championship. Well, he won that game, had a good Game 7, won Game 7. The rest is history. So, let's fast forward 3 years later. 2 years later, the Celtics got rid of the big three. It was time to move on. And a consequence, or a benefit of doing that is tonight, they can actually win the lottery, believe it or not. So, anyways, this Celtics team is very different. Isaiah Thomas came in, very quick rebuild from the Suns. That was a great trade, one of the best trades in the past 2 seasons, maybe in the past 5 years. Exceptional trade. They had Avery Bradley, who, by the way, was on the 2012 team, but was more of a role player, was very early in his career. And then you had Jay Crowder, was just getting started. He's actually part of that Rondo deal earlier that year. So again, all these guys are kind of new pieces, not exactly the high draft picks, more of a developmental process. And look, they had the same team, plus now it's Horford, plus now it's Jaylen Brown, a few other pieces. And that Cavs team, first year, they're actually mostly the same teams. That ended in 4, the most famous incident of that Game 4, Kelly Olynyk kind of broke Kevin Love's shoulder, dislocated it so badly, and J.R. Smith's punch on Jay Crowder, which cost him 2 games. And that series, I don't think there are any really memorable moments. It is 4-0, and look, the interesting thing about that series is the Cavs, they're pretty much the same team. LeBron, Kyrie, Love, of course, they're much healthier. Mostly the same team. Sure, Channing Frye wasn't there then. Sure, Darren Williams wasn't there then, but JR, Shumpert, mostly the same. The Celtics, addition of Horford really paid off. They're the same team and the same names, and they just got better. They got better last year. They got better this year. They've made progress every year, significant progress, and they're only going to get better. And looking at this team, the Celtics, look at the tools. Isaiah Thomas, last pick, developed into a really good scorer in Sacramento, went to Phoenix, came over to Boston. Just great, smart thing by Danny Ainge, move like that. Jay Crowder was a piece in the Rondo deal from Dallas, came over. Avery Bradley, a developmental project way back in 2010. Got better and better each year. Great move. Very smart move. Al Horford signing, very smart move. And look, Al Horford has really added some pieces to his game. And really, from watching him play very consistently, 7 straight games, I really got to see a full effect of what he could do, which really remarkable player. And this is pretty much the same kind of team, just everyone's better. So, in this series, as we took you back in time, here's what's going to happen. Looking at the matchups, point guards, no one's really going to play defense. There could be like Irving at 35 and IT with 35. It could be duels like that since they're guarding each other. They're not going to play very well in defense. And then Bradley, who guards LeBron James? Avery Bradley can't do it. He's too small. Really, I think he'll do a good job of, his main job will be shutting down J.R. Smith, making sure he doesn't get hot, which he's very capable of doing. Who guards LeBron? I don't know. Jay Crowder? Maybe too slow. Of course, he's too slow. Definitely has the size. Smaller and slower, of course. Al Horford again, too slow. No one can do it. There's no one on this team that even has a shot to do it. We've seen that throughout the playoffs. People will try. It'll be interesting to see who actually does it, but you just can't stop LeBron. That's the bottom line. Looking at the center matchups, Kevin Love, much better than Amir Johnson at the 4. That's one thing the Celtics just don't have. That's not close. 5, I take Al Horford over Tristan Thompson. Again, Thompson's a much better rebounder, a better defender. He could actually be eliminating Al Horford. Of course, you may have to chase Horford at times. And look, Al Horford, very productive throughout the playoffs. Does screens, either 1, he can just roll the basket and score. 2, sets a screen, wide open for pick and pop, knocks it down. He's helping Isaiah Thomas. Look, Horford's passing ability, Al Horford's going to be a huge factor for the Celtics. He's really big part why they won the last series. And so my prediction, as I said earlier, is home court advantage much of a problem? Well, what I saw from the Cavs in the first round, second round, it didn't matter. LeBron James just came in and dominated. And I think he's going to do the same thing. He's going to dominate this series. He's going to destroy the Celtics. I don't know what else can happen. Kyrie Irving's going to have a good series. No one, you know what? I take that back. Avery Bradley, I'd put him on Kyrie Irving, make sure he's out of the picture. And J.R. Smith, let Isaiah guard him. Of course, too small. Maybe that's why. I don't know what you do. Here's an interesting strategy. It's not going to happen, but for best defensive plan, you start Isaiah. Wait a minute. You know what? You can't stop LeBron. There's no way to stop Irving. Start Bradley, start Smart, start Isaiah. Smart guards Irving, okay. Bradley guards James, too small, can't do it. You know what? maybe Isaiah Thomas, maybe you insert him as a sixth man. He's not a sixth man anymore. You know what? It's just a very big dilemma. Isaiah, you're putting in the worst defender, one of the worst defenders in the league against one of the best offensive point guards. And then you have to guard LeBron. There's just no way around this. And Washington, yes, Isaiah could guard Beal, which, again, John Wall is much more important to the team than Bradley Beal. That was okay. But look, there's no way to hide it. There's no way around it. The Celtics are really in trouble on defense. That's why they're going to win the series. And predictions, my prediction is the Celtics win game 2. Since they've played some very hard-fought competitive games this year. So Celtics win game 2. And the Cavs just dominating Cleveland, win game 5. Pretty short series. They'll be waiting for the Warriors. So I don't see how the Celtics win. I don't think there's any way they can win. They're just not as talented. You know, their strategy was going back to the trade deadline. We can get Jimmy Butler. Oh, there goes that lottery pick. There goes that number 1 pick. There goes maybe next year's pick. There goes maybe Jaylen Brown. I don't know, Marcus Smart. You're losing key pieces, and yes, you're adding a great player. But that's not enough for Paul George or DeMarcus Cousins, all these rumors. So they decide, you know what? We're going to play the Celtics this year, and we're going to try to beat them. We probably won't, but we're going to give it a try. LeBron's not going to be this good forever. He may start declining next year, the year after, and we have these picks, sign some free agents. We'll be great. We'll be great in a few years. We don't have to go for it now. We can go for it in 2 or 3 years from now. So, I don't know if it'll work out. I think it'll be a good plan. You know, Danny Ainge has made a lot of good moves throughout the years. You know, was very aggressive. That's how they had that great 5-year stretch before, which obviously paid off whenever you win a championship. No regrets there. This time it might have been more known to be passive, which what if it doesn't work out? So I think that was the safer pick. They went safer this year, and look, they got all the way to the conference finals. They're the number 1 seed. Now they're not a dominant number 1 seed like the Warriors or the Spurs would be in the 1 seed easily in the East. But they deserve the 1 seed just based on what happened. You know, Cleveland defense was terrible, and Cleveland's defense, I'm not worried about in the playoffs. And look, just the scoring, the passing, no one can keep up with LeBron in that type of way. There'll be some close games for sure, but it's not going to be interesting. So, final statement, Celtics in 5. You know what? Cavs in 5. Sorry about that. I don't know how the Celtics win in 5 unless LeBron gets hurt, of course. But Cavs in 5. Let's move on. So the Warriors and Spurs. So that was a very interesting game. The Spurs looked great going in. Kawhi was playing great. They had 25-point leads. They had a 23-point lead. And you're thinking the Spurs are going to win. They're going to win. Since that was before Curry exploded. He really exploded in the third quarter. Durant exploded down the stretch. They each did great. Kawhi got hurt. And now, Kawhi was mainly guarding Kevin Durant. And he was doing great on offense himself. That's the reason why they're in. And then when we went out, who guards Durant now? I don't know. Jonathan Simmons, yeah, he can try. I saw Manu Ginobili doing it. It made absolutely no sense. 0 sense whatsoever. I don't care if it was a switch. Switches just don't make sense. But I might have saw it 2 or 3 possessions in a row. The Spurs just had no one. They went to Aldridge, but they didn't have a true shooter. Bills played awful. He was something like 1 for 8. There was no Tony Parker. And Kawhi Leonard, by the way, is not going to play tonight. He will not play tonight. So what do you do now? Who's going to guard Durant? Jonathan Simmons, I think. Yeah, he's their best defender to do that. There's really no one else. What about when he's not on the floor? The Spurs are shorthanded. DeJounte Murray, sure, he's played pretty well when he's been on the floor in the regular season, but he's not ready yet. He's not ready yet to really be thrown into the backup role yet. They really don't have anyone. LaMarcus Aldridge Yeah, he can score. Who else can score? Danny Green. He has the finals record for most three-pointers made. Did Curry break it? I don't think so. I think he still has the record, just barely. But I guarantee you Curry will break it one day. Anyways, he's a great defender. He can take Thompson out of the picture. But he can't score that consistently. Aldridge can score. He has a great history of scoring. Pau Gasol, he's scored in the past, was a very good scorer at times, and still can score, but just not as good as he once was. Patty Mills, sure, he could break out, could take 10 threes, he could score 25 points if he's hot, but then he might score 5. You just don't know. He's not going to score 25 points, and they don't have that. They're just no really good scorer. They're going to have to give the ball. Aldridge, he's going to just go crazy. Maybe scores 35 points a game. I mean, he scored back-to-back 40 games 3 years ago in the playoffs against the Rockets. He might have to be that guy who was in Portland. They're going to rely a lot on him on offense and three-point shooting, perimeter scoring. That's just going to have to be shared. Okay, Ginobili. He played great in Game 5 to beat Houston. Played well on offense in Game 1. Times in the playoffs he's looked like, turn back the clock. Manu Ginobili can still play. Other times it's looked like, is he done? He's done. He has nothing left. And it's been back and forth kind of pattern deal. And if Ginobili's like that tonight, for the rest of the series, no way the Spurs are going to win. This is the most underdog, or you can say the lowest odds they've had to win. I mean, looking throughout their history. I mean, yeah, even on a down year, they were a 7 seed. They won 50 games. Down year for them. Very powerful West in 2010. They made it out of the first round. They've had their moments, and just the way they've evolved. 3 or 4 years ago, Kawhi Leonard had yet to become a superstar, was a great defender. They didn't have this guy they could just ISO on offense, rely completely on. So they did all those passes, and the way they're run right now, they're not set up to do that. So maybe, just maybe, I don't think it will happen. I'll keep an eye out on that. I don't know what Popovich is thinking right now. Probably has to make some of the hardest decisions he's ever had in any of his 20 years coaching. Who to give the ball to the most, who to shoot, who's the leader of the offense, and especially on defense. You can't guard Durant. You don't have that leading scorer. They're going to be down 2-0 tonight. But you know how they beat Miami? What if they go back to that style of basketball? Well, that's the problem. Tony Parker's not there. Tim Duncan's not there. Manu Ginobili is worse than he was then. They don't have many of those players they don't have. They can't just magically go back to something. They just can't do it. And this is just as I said a few minutes earlier, this is the least odds the Spurs have ever had in any playoff series. And look, they were a very good team, but the Warriors are just too good. And look, Curry, the way he played in Game 1 on Sunday, he'll play like that. I think he'll play like that again. I think he's going to do great. And I saw an article on CBSSports.com earlier today citing that Kawhi Leonard energy update. Can Durant score 50? Well, he scored well into the 30s. He played great in Game 1, and Leonard was on him a lot of the time. And once Leonard came out, he got going. I wouldn't be shocked if he scored 50. I mean, probably not. Scoring 50 in the playoffs is very rare. I think he'll score well over 30. He's going to have a great game. Think about how poorly Klay Thompson played on offense. At least scoring-wise. He may get it going. I mean, and look, just the type of players the Spurs have, they can't do this. You're without your point guard. You're without Kawhi Leonard. There's just no way they can win. The Warriors, they are heavy favorites right now. They just have way better players, way better depth. They were heavy, heavy favorites going into the series. And if the Spurs would have hung on, let's say Kawhi Leonard was healthy, they would have won. They should have won. I mean, think about that rebounding. Let Stephen Curry, of all people, get a long rebound. They had 3 shots. Durant, Curry, Durant, I think. They each took 3 shots. One of them went in. They are 2 of the best shooters in the league. When you give them 3 opportunities, they're going to hit one of them. Wide open, might as well hit 2, 3. That was their chance. Curry down the stretch, put them up 3, put them up 5. LaMarcus Aldridge trying to go for the tying 3, not a 3-point shooter. Can take it, won't very often. I get why he missed that. And say they're up 1-0, maybe I'd say, okay, maybe they can win. But without Leonard, they're outscored by 30, 25. They're completely dominating without Leonard. So that shows they'll be without Leonard again. And they'll just get crushed. Now, if Leonard was on the floor and say they would have won by 20, 15, it's like, oh, this could be a series. This could be a series. The Spurs actually might win. But they're going to be down at least 2-0. Does Leonard play in Game 3? Who knows? If he doesn't play the rest of the series, it's going to be over in 4. It's just bad luck. And Warriors winning. They're going to win the series. We're going to have another Cavs-Warriors series. Now, let's talk about the other sports. Their playoffs are more exciting. More of a suspense, a mystery. You don't know what's going to happen. In the NBA playoffs, you could ask me on June or July 18th, who's going to be in the finals? Cavs-Warriors. You ask me September 28th, Cavs-Warriors. January 24th, Cavs-Warriors. March 23rd, Cavs-Warriors. It just goes every single day. And look, I'm somewhat bored of this matchup. I am bored of this matchup. And reasons why I'm not bored of this matchup: best players, best teams. This is as good as it gets. Here we go. This is the NBA Finals. So, huge amount of excitement. Tickets are going to cost 3 figures. Certainly 3. For even a bad seat. Way up there in the 3s. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be tickets in the 4s. This is going to be a huge series. It's going to be a media circus. Huge amount of coverage. Just the highest ratings in NBA history. Maybe the highest since the Jordan years. This is going to be, might be some of these games the most watched sporting events of the year, minus the NFL. No doubt. No doubt. Might outdo even primetime Sunday night games. This is just going to be a huge deal. It's going to happen. We can pretty much just wait for it. We've been waiting a year for this. We've been waiting since July. And look, you could go into a cave for 10 months. It's going to be Cavs Warriors. Fall asleep. And it's June 5th. You wake up, Cavs Warriors. Where, let's say it was the Major League Baseball. You go into a cave on October 1st. Cubs Red Sox. You come out on November 1st. Indians Cubs. Well, no one was expecting the Indians. Or here's another example. You can go into a cave on, let's go back to 2014. Nationals Tigers in 2014. Those were the 2 best teams on paper. And in baseball, that almost never happens. It was Royals Giants, 2 wildcard teams. In the NFL, even though the Patriots have dominated, you still don't know for sure if they're going to win. They're heavy favorites, but they could lose. The NFL, even though it's dominated by the very best quarterbacks, things change. Things don't go the way as planned. The National Hockey League, ask the people in Washington about that. It is completely random. The NBA is not. And in some ways I'm bored of this matchup. In other ways I'm kind of excited for this matchup. If the Warriors lose in the finals, I'll have zero sympathy for them. If LeBron wins, it will just prove that he is getting more and more thought as the greatest player ever. Well, thank you for listening. We'll talk more about the conference finals in the next few days, and we'll see you next time. If you're a DC sports fan right now, the Nationals or the Capitals are done, Wizards are done. We got 4.5 months left of the Nationals. Hopefully they can run away with the division and win the World Series, and Washington has a championship team. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.